primetime partiers, it's primetime party time. Welcome back to our hour of all things media and entertainment, live on the air at 9 p.m. at ptptshow.com and on your time, wherever you stream podcasts. Tonight, we are going to do another Talk of the Town episode where hosts Daniel and I have traded places a bit, talking about some events in LA, all within a bit of the comedy sphere, as well as recent Netflix release, Love Hard, for everyone still doing some streaming events at home. Also, with us to talk especially about Love Hard and all things in this episode, we have Wendy.
What's up?
Welcome back.
Welcome back to all of us.
Thank you.
So I went to the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast recording, and apparently it was their first live podcast, which was very fun. Yeah.
It's been going on a while. Well, I guess it started in like 2019. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I'm not educated on the subject.
Yeah, because it is their third season. I think you are pretty educated on that. But they were doing the Conan show up until, I want to say, like last year.
Right.
The end of last year. So they probably just had no time. They're like, we're already doing a live television show, which was fun. It was a little bit of went to Grand Central Station. What's one part that's like kind of weird, or I keep saying Grand Central Station and really need to stop saying that because I eat Handel's ice cream too much. That they have Graham Central Station that's about like the New York, major train station. And I really mean to say Grand Central Market. That is a Freudian slip that says I want chocolate graham crackers right now and to watch Gossip Girl. But no, I was in downtown LA. But the fun part about going to Grand Central Market, I went with my mom who used to live in LA in her childhood, which was a few years back. But they had like the old pictures, and she would like point to things where like my family on her side are all farmers, and she said they used to like come to it when it was an actual market to like hang out with people and be like, oh hey. And like now it is mostly trendy food, delicious trendy food, but you will still see somebody who has just like a whole row of like dried chilies, and you're like, yeah. And like some of the stands do like come from like, I think like butcheries and like meat markets and stuff, and then there's also like, I went and got like a fried chicken sandwich. And if you're one of those people who's not okay, or is okay with embracing some pre-holiday spirit, because some people have a hard deadline with like nothing holiday related.
Yeah, some people.
Some
Turkey
people.
Day.
Some people.
Yeah.
I am not one of those people. Someone here.
Yeah, so someone here might be. I don't know.
Someone here might be.
Maybe,
Someone might
maybe
here might be a little too strict.
a little strict. Everybody's got to have a cause. But please, Tracy.
I like that. I unearthed that.
What's the compromise here? Well,
So,
let's see. Let's see if
I feel like maybe you would be open to this.
Okay.
Like you could maybe crack this open. And by that, I mean Golden Road it's
Yes,
like
Golden
an
Road.
Anaheim-based brewery. They are known for all their fruit cart beers.
that
They
they
have
are.
one. They have one called Christmas Cart, and by God, it's glorious. If you like mulled wine and like with fruit kind of thing, it's like that, but beer. It has like a hint of some sort of cranberry-ish type thing, and then like spices. Like the fruit part is hard to place. Like I'm like, is this plum? Is this cranberry? Is it apple? It's like something just kind of seasonally wintry, and then like this kind of like cardamom, cinnamon
That sounds
type
pretty good.
vibes. It was very lovely. I really enjoyed it. I looked at it, I was like, Mama's gonna get a case of you when she goes to the next market. Yeah, so I'm okay with doing like, I'm not gonna like throw decorations up just yet because that's aggressive, but I also feel like
I agree.
1 month of Christmas stuff is like, for me, who does not celebrate the holiday religiously but enjoys the holiday spirit, I would like more of it. So
Okay.
Whereas I also have a dad who's very Catholic who will be like, we can keep Christmas decorations up until like, I think Ascension Day, which I think is like 10 days after Christmas or something. That's like a European thing, because I didn't know what this was. Talked to one of my coworkers from France.
I think it's fine.
And she
10
says
days.
it's fine.
I think it's fine.
At
which
least
I
there's
agree
a
with.
cutoff. At least there's a cutoff.
Oh
I'm a
my
December
gosh.
27th, 28th
That's
kind of person.
That's a
ridiculous. That
short
is so
window,
ridiculous.
Daniel.
That's
No,
Are you
so
Christmas,
short.
Boxing Day, and
Wow.
then get
That's
your
so
shit together. It's about time for the new
no.
year.
I didn't realize this was going
No.
to be such a juicy episode. Did I just find
I
out that
just
you're a little Christmas curmudgeon? Are you a
no,
little
I,
ball
Yeah.
I
bug?
love the holidays. I've had holiday drinks this year. And I'm a little light on my stance this year, supply chain issues and whatnot. Stores had to fill with something. Halloween ended a little early. I can understand that for a year. But
I also don't think October is long enough to have spooky spirit. Like I want them both. I want them longer.
yeah, I could well, what if we got you up to like September 20th? Fall, the beginning of fall through the 31st, strictly spooky season.
I like it. I'll adopt it next year.
Then we need
but then we need
the fall. We need fall. We absolutely need fall before we get into this winter wonderland overload.
Well, I think that
right
before Thanksgiving, that's a lot of autumn.
It's a lot of autumn. There we go. So we get
Yeah.
autumn, and then autumn happens, and
I'm
then
not the biggest
and this is what I
Thanksgiving
hate
person.
because and I'm not the biggest Thanksgiving person either, but Black
Mm.
Friday falls into the holidays, right? That falls into sort of
That's
like a
true.
Christmas kind of theme, and that's been creeping up on the Thursday. It's just been slowly every year just
No,
creeping.
it's not
Now it
creeping up
starts
on
at
a
like
Thursday.
11 a.m.
It now starts like yesterday. Like I get
Yeah,
emails
Yeah,
that
that's
are
true.
like
Black Friday is going on right now, isn't it?
I've
You're
gotten like
right, it is.
emails where they're like early Black Friday. I'm like, excuse you.
Yeah.
It's,
It's all out of whack.
first
The
week
whole
of
end of the
November.
year. It's just it's a massive
out of
It's
control.
massive blur. It's a massive it's out of control. It's absolutely out of control. There's no
Yeah.
you can't
Well,
distinguish one mood from the next.
Okay, I see you there.
I'll give you the 28th, 29th for decorations.
No, you need more
29.
time.
I
29.
kind of I like to ease in, so I will do like I'm gonna start getting like my winter scented like soaps. Those are gonna pop in,
That's nice.
and then start to kind of like
When do you ease in?
I'm like now, like I'm easing in now.
Whoa, what happened to autumn?
Autumn doesn't exist here. No, I mean like soaps are soaps. Like I like to start like burning some candles that smell like pine trees. Like I'm into that. Though
Okay.
to give
Sounds pretty
myself
autumn-y.
credit, I will
Right?
keep
No, is that
things
winter?
that smell like they'll call it like frosted fir or something like that.
Mm.
And well into like February. Like I kind of am like, I like this smell. We're just gonna use this soap until it's gone.
Well, February is still
February.
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's we
yeah.
have a decider on winter, and it's in the calendar. Everything's good. Like there's some
Well,
order there, even if we want to extend it a little bit.
It's true. I guess like for countries that don't celebrate Thanksgiving, which is all of them except for us, and then there's like a Canadian version of it,
Right.
Right.
like they just start in the holidays now. Like it's just done. Like they don't even like Halloween that much, though I have heard Halloween is
2
getting
months, huh?
bigger abroad, which makes me excited.
That's nice. Good.
Yeah. And I recently found out about this holiday called Lose. See, this is where I get my tangent merit badges.
Well, okay,
where
what is lose? This is relevant.
It's like a Guy Fawkes Day type thing of
what?
I saw many Instagram stories about this, and the images were just like so strange. So you see a lot of they call it like a bonfire festival. It's called Lose Guy Fawkes Festival, and they're burning puppets and like other things, and this area like does like it's in Sussex, which is like the south of England, and they do one of like the biggest ones, but it's about like a kind of like a let's see. In addition, each of the 5 main local societies creates a topical tableau, a large 3-dimensional model, so this is a puppet, packed with fireworks, and the cliff and south of our societies display on pikes the heads of its current enemies of the bonfire, who range from nationally reviled figures to local officials. Oh yes.
Sounds
so
like a decent amount of lore.
yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the word I was trying to think of. Sorry, it's been like daylight savings. The noggin is moving a little slower. The wheels are turning at a not as fast pace.
Yeah, well, we're axing stuff. Let's axe that.
I know. So yeah, they take like these puppets and they burn them of main figures. So that it's kind of like an anarchist, like anti-establishment type festival in the UK. That seems like the
When is
best
it?
way. It was Friday, November the 5th. I don't know the significance of all of this, like, but I asked one of my friends and she kind of explained it. It's kind of like against the man, like stick it to the man festival. That's probably a very like layman's term. It's like, oh no, there's some bigger cultural significance to this. So, but it looked really cool. Definitely seems like something where I'm like, if I find myself in the UK during this time, I would go. Seems like a burn it at the stake, but not in a bad against women way.
I like it.
Yeah.
I wonder how much it matches the vibe of the rest of the holiday season that has crept up into it. Maybe we should give it some space at the beginning of November to be itself before we start rolling in other identities into it. I like that it's carving out a space for itself away from some of the other designated holidays.
Well, there's like isn't there like there's a lot of like autumn harvest festivals too.
Yeah, and you lose those if you just throw Jack Frost on everything.
Wait, what time? Yeah, don't we get a special dessert for autumn harvest festivals?
Wait, what?
I was like, isn't there like little? I think they do. I'm like, I feel like I get like little desserts, like little moon.
Oh, you mean mooncake?
Again, I'm moving slow today. But yeah,
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking more about like pumpkin pie or
like,
something like that.
Desserts?
Or like
I was like,
pumpkin spice lattes. Like this is what
no pumpkin spice lattes. I'm talking mooncakes.
Mooncakes. Yeah. There's mooncakes, but they're not, I don't think they're desserts. I think they're really savory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you can have dessert mooncakes, but they're typically savory.
You typically savory.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's really, yeah. Have you had one?
I've had a mooncake, but I've had it kind of like a sweet bean paste.
Yeah, I only eat mooncakes with the egg yolk in it.
Oh.
So
that'd be savory.
Yeah. It's interesting because God, once again, it's really hard to explain it in English because it's not a cake. And I think when people hear cake, they expect cake. It's not a cake.
They expect mooncake to be like a half moon.
Right. They're expecting like a moon pie.
But really, it's like, yeah, there's like Japanese term is manju, but it's kind of like a bready sort of like, it's not gonna get translated super well.
Yeah.
But it's like it is a small carbohydrate that could be either sweet or savory, using a lot of times beans for the sweet.
Yeah, like once again, this beans that you mash together.
I was like, got some sweet beans for you guys. But honestly, I think they're really good. So there's that. I don't know. But I was trying to think of other like autumnal things to appease Daniel's love of the fall as to not be avalanched by winter.
And I was just
like, want to have its time. I was once in Japan for Harvest Festival, which like people actually get time off work and stuff.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, this is like a bigger deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really here. I mean, you can go to places, they have like festivals.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's nice to have things last a little longer because some places, I think, I can't say for all Asian countries, but when I was in Japan, it's not really, it's a Western Christian holiday. And so their Christmas ends right after Christmas, like midnight. They are packing up everything. And I get really sad. Daniel would love it. He's like, this is my place.
Wow.
You're just shaking hands of all the workers, like you're doing the right thing. You're packing everything up.
Like, nice to meet you.
So on time. No, it is a bummer because I remember looking things up to go and being like, oh my gosh, if I don't get there before December 4th, like no more light festival. Nothing.
They're so strict.
I was like, this is insane. Meanwhile, Daniel's like, as they should, as was intended.
Yeah.
Do they need volunteers?
Yeah. Like, you're just like yanking out candy canes out of kids' hands. Like, no, it's over. It's over.
Better luck next year,
It is
kiddo.
over.
Yeah.
I tried harder. But yeah, that is true. When it's not as much of a religious holiday and more of like a just kind of a fun holiday, I feel like an agreement we could have is that we all want to start being cozy in November.
Yes.
Like cozy season begins. Maybe
It's already begun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already,
like,
especially with daylight savings time ending. And I don't want to put too much on that as a benchmark because I would like to obliterate that from the calendar at some point in my life.
it would be nice. Just
But
pick a lane.
for
Yeah.
now, we can distinguish. Tracy, you've cracked open your first holiday cold one.
I did. It's not putting up a tree. It's just like
It's not
having
putting
a
up
little.
a tree.
It's having a little fun.
You're right.
Just like
It's
little
easing into it.
It's having a little
It's a
sprinkle
good vibe.
before you get
Maybe.
into the full flood.
I'm opening up my mind this year. I'm compromising. I'm seeing what it's like to let the love of the holidays into my heart a couple weeks early.
Oh.
And I'll crack open one of these beers. I will find one. And I will do as you did before you saw Conan on that day. And how was Conan?
Yeah, Conan was great. He did many things. Started off with like lovely like blues jam band. Fantastic. Fantastic. I don't know what that was from. And then they had Sona and Matt Gorley, like his two, like Sona is like his longtime assistant who I think is like starting to do some of her own things. And then Matt Gorley is his other like producer who also has become a character on the show, which I enjoy. Those are things that I like where I'm like, yeah, the people behind the scenes become the friend of the scenes. We love that. And they're both really funny. Like when they just read ads all together, I always am just like laughing really hard in my car. And I saw him do them in person. It's really great. He's insane in how he can do like just certain voices and some of the ads that you're just like, he says some people just like one of the things they do is called magoosh, but he says it really like magoosh. And so like he says people on the street will just like yell that at him and he's just like, it's just free advertisements. Like none of these people need to pay me anymore because I'll just say it because it's fun. So that was funny. And then, you know, so every episode he has a friend that he introduced. And this, for the first live episode they did, they had Will Arnett.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's so funny. He's so roasty. I loved it. Yeah, because he's just, yeah, him and Conan would just go back and forth. But I also was just like, love it. He talked a bit about, you know, things he learned from BoJack and things from Arrested Development. There's a lot of people just like saying stuff from the crowd because of that. Like, yeah. And like apparently Conan's side was just like, I think Job is the most hilarious character that ever existed. And I was just like, dang, that is a full statement. That is a full stop. But he is really funny. His voice really is like that. I was wondering like if that was like a, you know, like a performance voice, which, you know, it was still a performance. So maybe, but I was just like, oh man, that rasp, it's real. It's just like, it's
I mean, he's one of my favorite Batmans.
I know. Ooh. Actually, Conan said that on the podcast. He said, you are my favorite Batman. And then he was like, toy edition. Toy edition. And yeah, it was kind of cool just having like the full audience experience. It was at the Wiltern. So I was like, I've never gone to a podcast recording. I think. Have I gone to one ever? No, I have gone to one. I went to the Guys Who Fucked podcast recording once at the Irvine Improv. I had to look back, but not a lot. And this one was in like a full kind of like traditional theater, which was kind of a different vibe. They kind of did this show in the normal structure, except for they did ads at the end. They called it the pay the bills section, which was cute. They also have a segment that's called like it's like a quiz about dicks. And so, but this one was Natural History Museum edition. I think they just did that because they were recording on Wilshire and they're like, Natural History Museum, go see the tar pits over there. But they did one where so they were mostly just like Matt would quiz Sona and Conan about like different animal phallic facts, basically, and they would just try to guess the right answer. So like it was mostly just to kind of like have a little bit of healthy competition at the end. In hindsight, I feel like they were trying to like balance out the energy of like having intro and then conversation and then kind of debrief and do some ads and then kind of like get the excitement up at the end. And then at the end, the intro to the podcast theme song is the White Stripes, so like We Are Gonna Be Friends, and then he covered it with the band at the end, which was cute. And he's also pretty good.
That's
honestly.
nice.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, we're getting a performance as well, because they did take some like questions from the audience that they were saying were like voicemails, but you could see people at the bottom.
Yeah, not really.
And they would like live talk with them. You're like, it's so weird that like from the voicemail we're able to interact. So they played along with that. But yeah, they had quite a few people coming on with like just like fun questions. And then there's always like that one where it's like the couple of like, we came here even though we've already broken up. And I was like, why does this happen at so many podcast recordings? Because I feel like I've listened back to episodes from other people's and they're just like, but they said like, what would make us happy is if you played a song. And I was like, which producer put you up to this? But it was good. It was very nice. So yeah, it was a great time. And it's kind of like, I guess like the contrast is, fun fact, I do like to chase around like some Conan stuff. So I did go to like the show recordings, like did I go 3 times? I think so. Like a good amount, like more than you really like. I would say like more than you need to, but it's really fun. I thought it was a good time, and I think most of it was like I'd have a cousin, they'd want to go. You have to be 16, so you had to kind of wait for each of them to turn 16. And then gotta take them to Conan. We're like, we gotta go, but that's like, you know, going to Burbank and going to a television recording is such a day. Like you have to get there, you can't be late. You gotta stay from like 2 to like 5 or 6. Sometimes if it's a long one, they're gonna like, you know, people are gonna run you some like random pizza slices and be like, don't go to the bathroom. Yeah. But for like podcast recording, it's like very loose. So it's like that energy was both on stage and in the audience, because which I mean, some people could be tightened up more. Like there were some just like, I don't feel like people used to like just, I mean, they do. But there were a lot of like screaming from like the audience. I was like, but everyone's in like masks. So you really couldn't hear what people were saying. But you just could hear that they were just like jettisoning gibberish into the atmosphere. So like, yeah, you didn't, it was, that part was weird. Like I was kind of like, I don't know why everyone's. So I think that's just part of like going into society again, where there's some people who are just like, I am amplified. I can do more than I could do in the past. So yeah, it's people are back in audience seats, which is fun. He liked to amp up the amount of people each time of, you know, people who, when you're watching basically a podcast recording, like I think the fun part is like sometimes people like to like kind of play tricks and be like, this is what's actually happening right now. Right. It's not. So that's fun to watch. And I mean, it's actually fun to listen to later too, because you know, you can hear the sarcasm. So yeah, all in all, it's a good time. I was like, you know, proud of my aunt for driving, because she got parking in a very particular area that was very hard to find. And I do recall the guy in front of there, wouldn't have hurt to have a sign, because did many maneuvers to get here. He's like, sorry, we don't have a sign like swingers. And I was just like, what was that reference? Ooh. Like this is a deep cut, my friend. I mean, not really, but then kind of. I was just that's just like, for the sign. But yeah, that was a fun ride. But yeah, all in all, good time at Conan. Conan's always a good time. I'll follow him to whatever network, channel, platform, medium he will do. Hard, released on Netflix. This has a cast of people from a lot of things that I've watched because, as you all know, if you listen to this show, I watch everything that includes vampires. So I have seen Nina Dobrev before because she's on Vampire Diaries. Then obviously we got Jimmy O Yang, which he's in so many things at this point. But I think like first reference point was Silicon Valley, then stand up, then he was in Crazy Rich Asians as well. And then we have Darren Barnett, who I only known from Never Have I Ever with Mindy Collins' show. And then also had James Saito, which people either know from Always Be My Maybe or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which is boyfriend of the host was like, he was in Ninja Turtles and was very excited about that. But yeah, and also on a show that we've covered in a previous episode, Eli Stone. So those are the main characters that I was kind of like excited to see. Obviously, there were other characters. I don't follow Heather McMahon as much, but I know a lot of people do. And yeah, it was an interesting to see it. Like, I didn't exactly, I mean, I kind of knew this was going to be a holiday movie based on the premise, but I also wanted to watch it when it came out because unlike Daniel, I was okay double dipping in 2 holidays for November.
So it has begun.
And so it has begun. So the premise of this movie, it's definitely a rom-com, a holiday rom-com, which I think you should set your expectations accordingly. I love a holiday rom-com, but I also don't expect it to be more than a holiday rom-com. That being said, this is much more high quality, in my opinion, than many of the Hallmark movies that I will also watch for the holiday rom-com spirit. But there's also classics like Serendipity that I feel like are timeless. And this one is a bit more time-stamped, but it is about people who meet on a dating app. And one of them perhaps has not been completely honest with the photos they have used and thus does a little bit of catfishing. But they did not catfish their personality, which is quite nice. So it is, but he uses the photos of kind of the, I guess they would just put the hometown kind of hottie.
Yeah.
In this small town of New York. So Wendy, you also watched this movie.
I did.
How did you feel about it?
I don't know. It's like it's a lot of mixed feelings because I don't think I think it hits a lot of points for romantic comedies, but there are also like a lot of moments where like, oh, you guys are not answering a lot of questions. Like Jimmy O Yang has a mom and you never see her.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So he says like, oh, this is my stepmom. But then I was like, what happened to your bio mom? She just disappeared. But they're like, I do wonder. I know it's like a weird thing to say. But I did think about it. I was like, why did they want to have a white mom? And I was wondering if it's because tag is mixed.
I thought that was the reason where they're like, oh, because then it could like, then it wouldn't be as weird of him doing, like, it would make sense to her when she's getting like, you know,
right,
like going into the household of like, oh yes, this makes sense. But it's also just like, that's too far to go.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because I was just like, I don't I mean, sometimes I guess I don't know. I don't know if she saw like an Asian couple be like, why is tag mixed? But then it could be like, you know, sometimes, you know, Asian people adopt white babies. It could be the other way. It doesn't always have to be this white couple adopting Asian babies. So yeah, I don't know, like that. I don't know. It's like that's the stuff that really threw me because I really like before they met each other. That part was really well done.
That was really cute.
The beginning was really nice.
Yeah, they did accelerate it quite quick. Like, yes, she does go straight from being the girl who's essentially writing kind of like modern Sex in the City type articles, and they kind of do her up to be a lot of that way, but kind of the West Coast version of that. And then just she kind of swiftly goes like, I should surprise him for Christmas. He sent me one text message about, I wish you were here for the holidays.
Right.
And you are a little bit like, the most skeptical person ever would do this on a whim.
Yeah.
But then they also kind of point, I think the other part that they kind of rushed was that she kind of was like, I kind of got to do it for the story.
That
A
part
little
didn't even
bit.
really make sense because you never saw her writing it until the end.
No. And you're kind of like, I don't feel like she was doing her job this whole time at all. Like, I think she
Yeah.
was trying to hide from doing her job. And then her editor like tracked her down.
That's
and
also a
pulled
weird
out-
thing. That was also a moment in the film. I was like, no boss cares as much.
No,
Not to use his own miles.
no one's getting on a plane during the holidays and being
Yeah.
like, I want to know where this deadline is
Yeah.
for one article of my entire publication.
Right. Like, I think you have a lot of staff to look over.
Yeah. And he already kind of like made comments about like how hers was just like kind of like,
Right.
oh,
It's like
leave
fluff.
this to the other journalists that are
Right.
more hard hitting. And it's kind of like, which I was like, oh, that's kind of mean. And also like, well, if that's the case, then why are you like following her around if she's so like
Right. Like
meaningless to the bottom line?
yeah, like it feels like her stories don't even make the cover. And yet he's like, oh, I gotta make sure this is done on time.
No, it's just like, I still got to make sure I got to chase you, even if the other people, they'll just do their work. You're kind of like,
Yeah.
what's going on? So yeah, there were a few things. I mean, that's where I'm like rom-com expectations where like there's always going to be some details that are kind of like, I mean, the best rom-coms are tidy. Like they
Yeah.
really do connect all those details and you're like, there's just like not a single thing missed. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I'll watch it 5,000 times.
Yeah.
And this one, like, I would still watch it again. I think
Yeah.
it's cute. I actually kind of wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. And I was like, oh, I actually like this a lot more
Mhm.
than the previews kind of led me to believe. But I was like, I want to watch it because there's too many people I like to not watch it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a lot funnier than I thought. Like
Yeah.
and there's a lot of relatable moments. I've tried to rock climb in a gym though, sans harness, and I was like, oof. I've done the moment of being like, no.
It's so funny. Oh God, that was kind of painful. I was telling Daniel that some of the stuff they were doing when they were rock climb, I was like, you don't do. It doesn't make
That's
any
also
sense.
true.
When it was really nice that he was able to encourage her and say like, hey, put your AirPods in and you can listen to music and relax. And that was really nice. And then when she got to the top, he shoved her off the wall. And that made absolutely no sense. That was the only way she got down. That made no sense. Who was catch? Like someone has to belay you. Like she just landed on her feet.
Like Tomb Raider style. She's
like Tomb Raider style. Yeah. And I was like,
here.
she's really that scared and her eyes are closed. She would hit that wall.
Oh yeah.
Like she would just bounce off of it. I just, that part was like really annoying. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. No one should try this. There should be a disclaimer. You can't be on the top of the wall and just jump backwards with your eyes closed.
No, I also just don't like the whole like rope. Like it's like you have a rope. You shouldn't be this. I mean, I know everyone's allowed to be scared of what you're going to be scared at, but that was one where I was just like, you can get down. Getting up is hard. Like, but I feel like you wouldn't get up and be like, ah. Yeah, I guess that's like a hard thing because like people are scared of heights and like they gotta get down somehow.
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
I guess. But I'm also just like, I don't know, you did fly across the country to me like a guy. That seems to me to be like scarier. But again, that's putting me in a situation of a character that's not me. But yeah, it does that was a scene where I was like, this feels not correct, but they did it for the laughter of just like pushing her off and just like having her being like boom
for the laughter. And I think it's just something that they could show that's like visually interesting and like, oh, she's out of her limits or out of her comfort zone because she's rock climbing now.
Yeah, and they're trying to show like how much like she was uncomfortable doing the things of the person she thought like, oh, because this guy is like kind of more my type on paper, I feel like I'm gonna be like just mesh with him so well. And really it was like every activity she was kind of like and also related because Sean and I went to Utah once and did the bobsledding, but not during winter.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
And it is fun. it's also extremely frightening. And we even had like a 17-year-old who was like trained to operate it in the back doing the steering.
Yeah.
But they said like it still went like I think like 40 miles per hour. Like it's pretty fast. And then they said on ice, it goes 15 to 20 miles faster. And I watched that and went like, I would be scared. Like, I don't know if I do.
That's really funny. I'm sure like I would also feel the same way, but I think one of those things, like when someone says like, oh, that was like 40 miles. I remember being on the back of a motorcycle and just thinking, oh my God, we're going so fast. And he was saying like, no, I went slow. This is slow. This is what slow is. I'm doing this very slowly for you. And yeah, it doesn't feel that way when you're just like, oh my gosh, things are whizzing by. It can be a lot. Yeah.
No, because like 40 miles per hour in a car, you don't feel it. But in like a bobsled,
And the
you feel
bobsled.
it. Because we were like, I remember thinking in it, going like, if just like a pebble comes and goes underneath, I'm dead.
Oh,
Like these things are going so fast and
yeah.
they can go off course really easily and all this stuff. And you have to like position your body in a certain way so that you don't like injure yourself. Like you also watch that and go like, how do people do this in the Olympics? So scary.
Yeah.
How do people do luge? I still wonder about it late at night. But yeah, that's where I watched that when I was like, I feel that girl where she was just like, I'm gonna like just have a little smoke.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
that was probably smart. You relax yourself from that experience. But they had a lot of heartwarming moments. I liked the candle making. I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it was funny that they owned kind of like an REI type store
Yes, they did.
and that had the rock climbing. And I was like, I wonder who wrote this. This is funny. Like there's a lot of things where I'm like, this is cute. But yeah, and then they had all the like the kind of I think too, like there's things with like the kiwi allergy where I was just like, oh, we know this is gonna come up somewhere.
I know. That kind of annoyed me too.
But
I
also
knew it
was
was
just like,
coming, but I thought it was going to be a little different. I know I shouldn't be realistic about this. I just thought that if she really did look that bad, she couldn't even sing at all.
that's a good point.
Yeah,
Think
because she
about
was
that.
so puffy that she wouldn't have been able to breathe. It was so
No.
severe. And so when I saw it, I was like, you sound normal. That's not a thing. Like I know I shouldn't even care that it's not medically accurate, but that was something I noticed.
I also
Yeah.
was just a little bit like, you know, I don't know, like the whole thing of just like, she looks so weird. It's like,
I know.
I kind of just feel like, it's been done. Like, it's not bad. I'm not like offended. I'm more just like, we could do more with this. Like,
Yeah.
we could do something different to also show the like, oh, you embarrassed yourself. But then it wasn't even that embarrassing because no one recognized her.
Right.
Because
And that
her
was the
face was
point.
puffy. And
Yeah.
so like, it reminded me a lot of like the scene from Sweet Home Alabama where she goes to the bar and ends up kind of being like getting a little drunk and kind of embarrassing herself by being a
Right.
bit too sassy to everyone. But that actually was like good character development in that it kind of shows like the kind of traits where, okay, these are like things that people from your hometown have a problem with you now because you kind of think you're better than them in some
Right.
ways. And even if there's some truth in that, it's not like it's not like a beautiful part of yourself to show off. And then she has remorse after it and kind of like, gets herself down to earth with the other people in town. Whereas like this one, I was like, I feel like we just left this to be like, we had this moment so that she could end up at the vet
Yes.
to get
Yes.
better. And then like that was kind of funny because he takes her to the vet
Yeah.
to get medical care because it's the only place in town, and like ends it with like, do you have health insurance that I can give to the
Like,
vet?
haha.
Like like they stuck it for like the comedy moment, but I was like, yeah, I think we could do more with this, and it would have been, I think, funnier to see her make a fool of herself in front of that guy and have him remember and
Yeah.
have to undo it somehow than it being like a clean slate. Now here's the book, pretend to like all the stuff that he likes. And in that, yeah. And then in the going to dinner and being like, oh, I could maybe like eat meat even though I'm a vegetarian. I was like,
Right.
it's like, no. Don't be like that Weezer song that's like, you know, your mom made meatloaf, even though I don't eat meat. I loved you so much. I took some for the team. Like, you won't take it for the team. You'd be in the bathroom for a long time. But yeah, like there are some things where, but as much as I say that judgmentally, there are people who do it. There's hopeless romantics, and that is kind of like the point of this movie. Is like she's like, I will do it, you know, to impress the one. And
I mean, I guess I would also say, okay, so there's always the question that I'm very interested in your thoughts of the ethical part of it. But I want to ask you this first. Which part did you find that you bought their romance?
Honestly, I think in the beginning where they would do like the chats on the phone where like
that
he
was
would
really
like go to
sweet.
sleep and then wake up and he's still on the phone. I was like,
Right.
oh, so precious.
Yeah.
And they seem to have like a lot in common in that way. And when she got there, I feel like when she talked to the dad about losing her mom, I was like, oh, you're like more invested in this person than you think.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you don't have conversations with people like that you, like with important figures, unless you're, you know, sociopath, that you're like, oh yeah. And then the editor kind of points that out at the end where he's like, you have left many places much earlier when someone has, you know, disappointed you in some way. So clearly, if you've held out for this long, it's not just because you're like, oh, I have this deal that I must do, because all rom-coms have to have something like pretend to be my boyfriend or girlfriend for X amount of days before the holidays.
Yeah.
And then, what's that? Oh,
we're in love.
Pretend is real. No one saw it coming. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And that's where I was. How about you? What was the part that
was the same? Yeah, I thought that's why I said the beginning was the most enjoyable and the most believable part, just because except for now that I'm thinking about it, you really, okay, whoever's listening, you cannot overthink this. It will take you out of it every moment.
That's true.
She never FaceTimed him. That's really weird.
It's true. Like she says, like, I'll ask for a picture. And I'm like, you would have FaceTimed him, especially in a 2021 movie.
This is not like the early days of the internet where you need dial-up. Like, oh, we couldn't do it. You know, we kept getting buffering. You know, like, no, you would have
talked to someone for 2 years without knowing what their face looked like. Like, no, that
part was a little unusual, actually, now that I think about it. But it was really, their interactions were sweet, which I thought was really clever, because that is why they liked each other. But then, of course, he says, you fell for me. And she said, I fell for a lie. So,
which is both true and also false. Like, it is hard. I feel like the hard part about this movie is it makes you confront that everyone is vain, because that is, you know, a lot of it's a hard truth to swallow. And like, but they have such nice interactions that you do kind of go like, oh, like, I know, like, it's really bad and it's a misleading premise. And there's, you know, the ethical part, like you said, it's a tough one, because they frame it in a way where you're like, they're having this great time and he's just so insecure, but you also are like, it is also very wrong. It's also very wrong. So they walk a fine line, but I do think it's like, rom-coms allow for it because there's always some premise of lie. Like, I bring up Sweet Home Alabama. It's like she straight up pretended to be a different person, lied about still being married.
Right.
And like, everyone's like, but it's fine. It's because she is the main character, and it's for her finding her true love.
Yeah.
And that guy, it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, in this one, it's a similar thing of like, yeah. And some of the premises in other rom-coms are less like kind of ethically incorrect and more just like a ruse.
Right.
Like, I think that's usually a bit more like, if you think about it, it's like The Proposal, where they're like, oh, let's pretend to be engaged even though we're not. But it's like, no one's really getting hurt by that other than, you know, the main characters at certain points. But this one is a little bit bad because you're like, well, being dishonest about who you are and misleading to another person is incorrect. But then you're also they also kind of put it on her of like, you probably would have never given someone a chance.
I know.
Which is fair in some ways, but it's also, I still think like rule of thumb is like the person who catfished is in the wrong. You're not able to be like, well, you're too vain. It's like, that's probably also true, but you should maybe not be doing that. And, you know, it's kind of something that they're pointing out in this movie where you're like, how willing are you to forgive that?
Yeah, that's true. Like how willing you're to forgive it. And it was also weird because the tag said, oh, you pretended to like all the stuff I like and you don't really mean it, so you're a liar too, which isn't really the same because she doesn't lie about who she is. She does lie about what she likes, which is different.
Which, you know, a lot of people do. So that's where I'm like, I don't do that because like I'm bad.
Ooh, actually, okay. Quick question. Have you ever lied?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, everyone's lied. but I've never really.
What was the most obvious thing where you're like, I don't like this and I'm pretending that it's okay?
I have a really bad pretending to like stuff face. So I don't like, this is like, my face gives me away a lot and it's very unhelpful. So I've been really bad at that. I'm trying to think of like college, and even then I think like that's like part of why I like had quite a weed out situation where I was just like, I did not date a lot of people because I think I would just be like, no. And I couldn't even feign interest because like if people talk about too much stuff I wasn't into, I was like, yeah, I'm not into that. But I mean, I do, yeah, I'll have to come back to that. I was just like, what is something that I truly like was like, I'm gonna pretend to like this more than I actually do. I don't think I've totally done that, but I do feel like I'm thinking of one. I remember dating someone who worked at Disneyland. And I know, it's okay. They were a Jungle Cruise skipper too.
No, but you get to go in for free.
Yeah, you would think.
Never happened, apparently. Okay.
I mean, it did, but with costs. No, but like that was one where I was like, oh yeah, like I wouldn't say that I pretended to like Disney, but I did not understand how much he like loved Disney.
Oh.
And so I'd be like, oh yeah, I feel like we like the same amount. And then I was like,
yeah,
this is very, very incorrect. By the way, like people who work at Disneyland like Disney a lot more than you do.
Yeah, especially the Jungle Cruise operators.
Oh, I know. They're like trying to do like stand-up ish based on Disneyland facts. So that was one where I was like, I think I remember being like, oh, like, can you sing any of the Disney princess songs? I'm like, I think I could, but I don't feel like I would feel the same way about them as like but yeah, I think Daniel, you can back me up on this. I'm not good at pretending to like stuff.
No, not at all. Are you kidding me? No.
So that's why I'm having such a hard time. I'm like, could I do this successfully? I don't think so.
Why not? No.
It's not a talent, not one. Like, because I know what I'm supposed to do in those situations. So it's like you're supposed to wear like the t-shirt or the something or whatever and be like, I love sports, love this. And yeah, I would more just roast it. That was kind of more my move. So I don't have a lot of experience in this area. How about you, Wendy? Or is there anything you pretended to like?
I feel like everybody lies a little, especially if you're not sure of yourself and you're like, well, I'm supposed to get someone to like me. I think it's weird. I think that sometimes like early stages of dating, especially when you're younger, is kind of like being on those dating shows like The Bachelor, where you're you're just trying, like the goal is just to get this person to like you. And then you're
Yeah.
like, wait, do I even like this person? But like, no, the goal is like, you just have to be charming. And I think always like the biggest lies are, oh God, this is a recent one. It's not always, it wasn't for a romantic reason, but I've lied about liking food.
Oh no.
And I think
Wendy,
it
what
was very
food?
painful. I don't want to say on the air. I don't think anyone's really ever gonna recognize what I'm talking about. But there's definitely a time I went to a restaurant and the people were like, the people around me were like, this is good food. This is good food. And if I was with certain people, I would have been like, no, this food is beyond, like, this is below mediocre. This is the most typical fare. And I didn't want to say that.
Typical fare.
Yeah, like this is not special, but they kept saying like, oh, this is really great, right? Right? Everyone loves their meal, right? And I was just like, yeah.
It's hard in those situations though, because you're like, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to take this away from you. I can't tell you that I hate the Cheesecake Factory.
You hate the Cheesecake Factory?
No, actually, I don't like the cheesecake.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. That's fair. I get it. Their menu is long. It has purses. They're selling purses along with the food. Yeah.
It is mostly about the long menu. Though I have a caveat. I don't like the Cheesecake Factory as much as other people do. Though I do like the cheesecake. I do like the cocktails. They have good.
So you like their staples, the cheesecake. That's good.
You like the main thing that comes out of the factory. You're maybe not like in.
You don't need the avocado egg rolls.
I don't. No. Yeah, that's. I'm just kidding on that ish. No, I'm not kidding really.
No, it's
but
okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
No, it's okay.
We I don't understand the Cheesecake Factory.
What is not to understand?
Wendy is here defending Cheesecake Factory from those.
Full disclosure,
defending Christmas to the Cheesecake Factory.
Guys, you got to be open to this stuff for sponsorships. This episode is brought to you by the Cheesecake Factory.
They're like, we have already lost our first potential sponsor.
No. I want to be the first to say, and I'm probably not the first to say, but it does take a lot to get Wendy to compliment good food. When there is good food in front of you, because there is definitely this is 90% of food, and then there's this high bar that some food falls under.
I agree,
and you respect that food when Wendy mentions as such. Wendy is also the first person to ever take me to Cheesecake Factory.
Yes, I don't think it's great. I think it's decent for what it is. I think it's reliable. It's reliable food.
Okay. All right.
And also for like larger chain restaurants, better. Like
I think it beats out TGI Fridays and Applebee's.
That's what I'm saying. Like
anything beats out Applebee's.
Yeah, no, Applebee's is just the worst.
TGI Fridays I've not had, but I think I've seen them in the frozen section before, so I imagine that
they're around.
You could enjoy it at home.
I feel like I've had to pretend to like some food now that you think about it, but then I've also like over time just been like, if you don't like this, just go for the sides, man. Just like
but then if someone asks you, you have to point blank lie, be like, it's not terrible.
No, and it depends on the situation. Like if you're around certain people where like they're emotionally attached to the food, you kind of have to tell them like it's good, and then later be like, guys, I had this food, it sucked, and you have to just kind of like go along with it and be like, no, it was great. So that's I would lie to pretend to like stuff to be polite, and not rude. But
not to get a guy to like you back.
No, looking back, the only thing I really did is like, what is hard is like at the time I thought I liked surfing and I hung out with a lot of guys that surfed, and then later I was like, we didn't like that as much. We definitely liked it, and then it had an ulterior motive of like you could hang out with your crush while doing this, so you're gonna do it some more. But it wasn't like you hated it, but you definitely, once you were kind of like, the ship is sailing, you're like, we don't need to surf this often.
Yeah.
we are not all out at sea.
Yeah.
So,
you're just like, everyone, let's just go back and, get burger at Islands. We don't have to do this.
Actually, that is a chain restaurant that I like.
I don't like Islands.
See, some people feel differently.
I don't.
I don't know why I like
Yeah, I know it's
I don't
not.
get it.
I
know
understand what it is.
I know, but some part of me just enjoys
Everything on the
man.
menu is way past your daily caloric intake
That's not a-
recommendation.
and they put the numbers. I'm like, don't do this. I'm at
They
islands.
put some astronomical numbers on those.
I don't think it's like, but I don't think it's necessarily the calories, right? I just feel like for what it is, it was very expensive.
That's
They don't
also
do
true.
combos. Everything was a la carte. So I was
I
really
thought they-
surprised.
I felt like I had a combo.
I don't know,
ordered a
guys.
combo.
Did we go to some weird franchise?
The manager,
Rogue
every
Islands
manager went
franchise.
rogue.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I'm gonna run islands. No, I remember feeling like the burger was separate, the fries were separate. It was like, it wasn't a side of fries, it was like a
can
basket of
get
fries.
baskets of endless
That's what I'm
fries.
saying.
You can get the endless fries.
Right.
They're endless. But,
But
your
it was
burger
just-
also does come with a side, as far as I know.
That's
I don't think
what
it
It's in
comes
the
with
same
anything.
basket. How can you put it in the same basket if it's not included in the menu? You know,
We
it's so
had a
expensive.
Rogue Islands.
Yes,
Just
Rogue
giving us
Islands.
combos.
Yeah.
They were doing their own thing. I feel like, we're all sucker for trends where you're kind of like, I like this. And later you were like, did I like this? Was I swayed by the power of trends?
Right.
Did I
Right.
need to dress so much like Zooey Deschanel in the
Yeah.
mid 2000s? I didn't. Part of this was the things you actually liked, and part of this was just like the pyramid of ModCloth. I don't know, but
Good questions to ask yourself. Yes.
So a long answer to, can you pretend to like stuff, and do you remember? So you're mostly remembering pretending to like certain food.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, actually, Daniel, then two-part question would be,
Oh, yeah.
have you ever done it? And Daniel has not seen the movie, but I felt like he had feelings when I told him that, spoiler alert, they do end up together despite him being the catfisher.
Yes, both thoughts.
Okay. All right. Let me answer the movie one first. I cannot judge as I have not seen the movie. So if they have a believable relationship, good for them. Good for this movie. Last holiday movie I watched about relationships did not have a believable ending. I felt that it betrayed the entirety of the movie. So I am somewhat skeptical towards endings that traditionally wouldn't make sense. This is a tough message to get across in a believable way. In order to suspend your disbelief, in order to relate to it, and in order to really believe these characters and their love. And also, like, if she's flying out for Christmas, she better not be flying out at the end of October. And as long as all that's going on, then I think we're okay. I might be able to get behind it. Maybe I'll have to watch it, see what happens here. So yeah, I can't really say, but yeah, it seems a little weird. It seems like it'd be a tough sell. And if the movie's able to accomplish that, then that's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Have I ever lied? I'm sure I have. Not in our relationship, so I mean, you know me.
From the top,
right?
So like romantically,
not with you.
I very much, I guess my stance is I'm happy to be ignorant of things as so long as, just as long as there's common ground. I mean, I got to be interested too, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything about food or baking really, in the beginning of our relationship.
Okay, Sean could say the same thing.
Yeah, and here we are now. I get to see a lot of the great things that Los Angeles has to offer, having such an amazing food scene through our relationship. And that's really nice and educational. And yeah, I could have lied and recommended a ton of fufu restaurants. And you probably, knowing you would have called me out on my shit pretty early.
I'll be like, those words make no sense. That's not how anyone would describe any of these foods.
Yeah. Shout out to Worth It being a great wingman in the relationship. No, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I have.
It's tough because I also, that's why I go back and forth with, even with the film, is it wrong? How much lying is acceptable? She's just pretending to like rock climbing. Ultimately,
but
she's really
that's
shooting herself
fine.
in the foot because they're not going to enjoy it together.
Yeah, I think you
Right.
can lie about interests.
And you can
But
come
not about
out.
your face. You can't lie about your
Lying
face.
about your face feels bad.
Yeah, you can't
Like,
lie. Yeah.
like I almost feel like they could have done this movie where it's like she joins a new dating app where you're like blind
Right.
dating, and then like she had, kind of sleuthed to try to figure out who he was. And it's like, oh, it's probably this guy who's on this other dating app. And then she finds out, oh, it's actually
Oh, it's
this guy.
him.
She's
Yeah.
like if
That
she
could be
did things
good.
of like in the description of like he said he was Asian American, and he said he would like was in, worked at an outdoors place. It's like you could kind of like put that other guy into that description, then it's like, oh, it's actually this guy.
Yeah.
From
And
purely a logline perspective, that
Yeah.
gives her more agency and makes him more relatable in relation to the plot that I've been hearing you two speak about.
Mhm.
yeah. But this one, it's like, I mean, I did like that they called it like Flirt Alert. I was like, oh, it's a great app name. But like I think like the part where like he photoshopped the picture in, it was like, it's funny for a movie perspective.
Right.
Life, you would probably be mad. Like
Yeah.
that's one where I'm like, oh man, like, and realistically, she probably just would have gone home because like, if you lied about this, what else
What
have you
else have
lied
you lied about?
about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like he does like some sweet things, but there's like a lot of, I mean, I guess they did talk for quite a long time before she went over.
Supposedly, I was just surprised more people didn't call him out on it.
Yeah. Cause like they kind of were like, you're the bad guy. And you're kind of like, he was the first bad guy.
Yeah. And I also read reviews on Reddit. And so I feel like also a lot of people on Reddit are really young. And so someone said, how come his friend isn't upset that another friend essentially stole his photos and made a dating profile? And one person wrote, like, I think guys are really chill. I don't think they would care about stuff like that. I was like, no, I think someone would be bothered.
This was a Reddit comment.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
no. I think guys are just like more laid back. I think they're a friend, so he doesn't really mind that his friend took photos of him and
What a
made a dating
testimonial.
profile.
Okay.
That would be
Perspective.
bad. Especially like what if he was in a relationship and so it made
Right.
it look like he was
Oh
like
my
cheating and
God.
stuff. Like it could be very bad.
Yeah.
So I do think like no, there's a good amount of time where it's like it also could be a thing of like he had a lot of opportunities to bring it up before
Right, he
like she
did.
flew there. And then when he gets there and his comments are kind of like, no one thought you would like, I never thought you'd actually come out.
Right.
It's kind of like, so you're okay wasting someone's time.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of stuff where you're like kind of, but then you do remember all the sweetness in the beginning that you're kind of like,
Right.
it allows for a certain amount of forgiveness, but it's a hard hump to get over. Like
Yeah.
I think it's a good like topic that they brought up in the movie of like how bad is catfishing? Like
Apparently not that bad.
like for a lot of people, I think it's digestible. But then it also seems I think also it happens to so many people. They're
Yes.
probably just like because we all have friends who have had stories of that where they're like, you know, it's something that is so it's very relatable and like everyday lifey, and so people are kind of like, oh, it's like if that worst situation turned into the best situation, which is what a lot of rom-coms are kind
Yeah.
of the premises, like how did we get ourselves into this, and then it's like, oh no, it's amazing. It's like they do bring up Love Actually in this movie.
Yeah, that was kind of cringy the way it ended, where she copied it. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
I was like an homage to another Christmas rom-com where people have many thoughts about certain of the relationships in there where it's like,
yeah, isn't that scene like not really well regarded in hindsight? Because there's a lot of complications to it.
There was comments that he's proposing, or like he's not proposing, but he's crushing on his friend's wife.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a little unethical, which I guess that's kind of how a lot of these are. There's always kind of like a streak of unethical in a rom-com. It's always better.
Yeah, it's true.
When you're rooting for it a little bit more. This one, it's like you're rooting for the people individually because you're like, oh, they seem to mean the right way. But the act is one where you're like, this one's quite not great. But then I also think of like a like a staple, like Pretty Woman, where like the lie is quite big
Yes.
to like other people, but it's so good natured in a lot of it, where it's just like, oh, he just wants to give her a good life. He's also in love with her.
But he also pursued her due to a bet.
Yeah. And so like that's the thing. There's like all of these different
That's
unethical parts.
that's an interesting comment that you just made, that romantic comedies need like a moral boundary to be crossed to exist.
Or else there's no arc, because there has to be the thing of like people figure out that something's happening, that
Oh,
they're like,
that's unfortunate. Yeah,
I can't believe this is happening, because I always like get to that point of the movie where I'm like, cringe. Ugh, why did there have to be another bet, game, competition, ruse? Like there's always that point like 3/4 in where it's like, oh, now they're gonna have to like take some time apart to deal with whatever snafu has arisen. And then, the end is always like the forgiveness of that.
Yeah. It was just also weird because he did escalate it, because Harry Shum Jr. is the one who plays like the hotter older brother, and he has a wife, and
yeah.
And then
he
just wants the attention, so he forces her into this proposal. That's also kind of weird.
It's hilarious, and you see it coming, but you're also just like, oh no, this has gone too far.
Yeah,
like far too far to be like, oh, like I need to compete with this family energy, so I have to.
Right. I love his brother saying he doesn't have a ring. He doesn't even have a ring. Like he's not ready for this. Like he's just
and grandma's just like, you can just take, I don't have to be buried with this. I was like, that was so funny. Where I was like, they have a lot of good comedic moments in this movie. I think that's like kind of the strength. It's also why like some things are kind of like, but it was funny, so it was fine. So like you kind of forgive it, like when they do all the singing and
the baby it's cold outside duet.
Oh, that one's also really cute. Like the way they redid the lyrics was just funny. It was just great, and I liked that. So I'm like, and then when the older brother is going like way over the top with everything, that's really funny. So yeah, there's a lot of moments in it that are good. It's not, I mean, there's kind of like the movie like Just Friends, where they actually don't have too much of a lie in it. It's a little bit more about like pasts and presents colliding. So it's just like, I'm trying to think of other kind of like holiday rom-coms where there's always going to be that element where you're like, I don't know about this, but this one, definitely makes you think about like, would you forgive someone in this situation for posting the wrong photos, not the wrong photos, inaccurate photos, and like not pretending to be someone else inside, but on the outside.
Well, it's
tough.
context, right? Like lying about an interest like rock climbing, that's going to come up at some point. And like, that's one of those things where I think that there is this sort of middle ground to like defer your own personal judgment based on your infatuation or ideas with someone early on, right? Like you're not always the most reliable narrator to yourself when you basically find someone that you're really, really into, right? You don't really always know what's going on. I don't think that you should be expected to. And so you can try to, like, she doesn't know she doesn't like rock climbing, right? It's not like, like she was in a Tommy Caldwell situation early on and, like it's just traumatized for life.
She didn't enjoy it because he demonstrated to her like at the REI store. Well, it's not REI, but it looks like an REI store. And she is afraid of heights. So she doesn't enjoy it.
Right. But again, this seems, again, I don't know the characters. I didn't watch the movie. It seems like that's something that you could try to like psych yourself into. She
did try.
Exactly. I think that's different than understanding when you're an adult that you like there is a general unsafe vibe to hiding who you are as a person.
Right.
And they become very different scenarios because one, you're kind of fooling yourself, and the other one, there is this sort of societal, you should know better than to do that.
Yeah, she does actually. Yeah, now that you bring that up, she does trust him with her safety, considering she stays at the house.
I know. That's the part where I'm like,
That's
dude, I had seminars in middle school about like, don't go to the house from MySpace. Like, how is this not getting past the filter?
Yeah.
Like, I've had so many bad dates, but I am going to stay with the family. I'm like,
Right.
they could all be murderers. Like, what are you
Right.
doing? Have a healthy fear. But she really is like kind of just hopelessly in love. They kind of
Right.
want to put her in that like fish out of water type thing of like she's supposed to be very like you kind of get the idea that she's supposed to be sort of like not the type that would do a ton of like crunchy granola activities, but then she doesn't seem like fully like, oh no, like the not like the kind of the brother's wife seemed to be very a bit more
Like a girly girl.
like a girly girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with her, they kind of put her flexible as like, maybe you're not like a super, outdoorsy person, or else there would be no premise here. But you're also not completely opposed to it, which, seems kind of
Right. Like she does try to do those things. She doesn't like them and she lies, but yeah.
but
Oh
there's a
man.
certain amount of like feigning interest to just not be like a deal breaker or to like what's the word? Like some people like in an early stage of dating are just trying to not be controversial. Like they're like,
Right.
I don't
That's
want to
true.
Yeah.
like shut a door. So like I think
Right.
that's like where like I think some arguments of it could be like, so it's fine to lie about your personality, but not about your face. And like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I see that point. Like you do, it does make you think about that in the movie, like of like, wow, like what does that say about us as a culture?
Right.
But then I think the safety part is true, like of like you shouldn't pretend to be someone else when it's online dating. Like,
Mm,
it is very easy to make like, and he kind of points out like a pretty fake person.
yeah.
And that part is a little bit like too manipulative, where like, pretending to like hiking and then later being like, so not like the most into hiking. That's kind of okay. Like, people will agree to activities like that because they're like, well, I don't want to say like, no, I don't like this and just seem like I'm a negative, unfun person.
Also,
Yeah.
And
everybody has a different definition of hiking.
that's also true.
That's true. Yeah. Some people are like, it's like a little easy stroll. Other people require like a backpack full of camping gear.
Yeah. I can be both of those people depending on the group. But it's like, yeah, it's also just like date hiking versus exercise hiking.
I know.
Different hiking.
Different hiking.
Different hiking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to look cute for date hiking.
Yeah. You're
You
the
can't be
cute
too
outfit.
strenuous where you're like, oh God,
This matching workout outfit has many sweats.
yeah.
Matches in a different way.
Yeah. It was supposed to be cute and now it just doesn't look good anymore.
Now I
So
gotta go home. No, so that's why like I'm like, I can allow to some extent. Like hers is a little bit more forgivable. His is like it's a tough one, and yet I could see someone forgiving it in some ways. Because like
yeah.
I do look at like people. Now here's one. And I know we're like going late, so we can wrap it pretty soon. But there's people who like also do this on like LinkedIn where they put like, either like an older photo of themselves or they
Okay.
don't update their statuses right away. And then you're kind of like, is that unethical? And you're kind of like, no. But then you're also not necessarily trying to like connect with another person on a deeper and emotional level. So I think that's like kind of where like, there's like a certain
Yeah.
amount of like lies we allow in these like online personas of ourselves. And then there's the ones where we're like, that crosses a line. People don't like that. And we've all decided that catfishing is not good. And we used to have like TV shows that were kind of about catching people doing that.
Yeah, that was a popular
Jerry.
that was also a popular MTV show.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
I mean, the movie was really fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I watched a little bit of it again today, but it goes back and forth. Like that's really cute, and then you're thinking that's actually really shady. So it goes back and forth, and eventually it ends up like, oh look, but they're so happy.
Yeah. The heartwarming part does outweigh the parts that you kind of go like you kind of forgive him pretty early on as a viewer, I feel. So because you're kind of like, but we feel for you, like you kind of relate with him a little bit. But even I think like after you watch the movie, you're like, if this was like cast by someone who was less lovable on screen, would we have forgiven him so easily? And that is a fair point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And then he was like very helpful to her, right? Like anytime, like as soon as she kind of like got herself a kiwi infection, or not infection, allergic reaction, he kind of like, made sure she got better and all of this stuff. So you kind of see him early on go like, okay, I can kind of see why you trust him. He seems to want to get you out of trouble. And he seems pretty trustworthy, even though he's literally just displayed lying on a big level. So that's why it's hard. It's a tough one. It kind of puts you through loops in that sense, but it's like all of the actors are really fun to watch. I think like the writing is good in terms of dialogues. I think in terms of plot, like we've mentioned a few areas where we're like, okay, like someone who isn't scrutinizing the movie would not maybe pick up on these parts,
right?
But at the same time, there's a lot of people who do. So I think it's like one of those things, like you could watch it and just be like, I will enjoy this, but I'm making a mental note,
right?
And then there's other people who would just be kind of like, I'm like knitting, watching this, like it's kind of on, it's kind of like doing stuff while I'm doing other holiday activities. So yeah, I could see it both ways, but yeah, I mean, it's sparked a fun discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what is allowed for feigning early romantic interest in terms of lies?
Yeah. You just can't fake your face.
Can't fake your face is what we learn at the end of the day. Yeah, we're gonna end it there.
All right, that's it for this week's Primetime Party Time. Thank you for joining us. The show could not have been made without the following amazing people. We're talking our artwork. It was done by Fen. Find her at FenLatte on Instagram. Our theme song was done by J-Wright. Find him at jwrightmusic.com. Website with thanks to Coco. Some of the hardware put into this episode also this week. Thanks to Coco. Thank you.
Thank you.
Find episodes of Primetime Party Time on Apple, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you want to rant, roast, or rave with us, tell us if you lied in a relationship. Tell us if you're still lying in a relationship, if that's still going well for you. Get the person you're lying to on the air with us. Hit us up at email at info@ptptshow.com via our voicemail or chat box, all on the ptptshow.com homepage. We want to hear from you and catch the next Primetime Party Time next Monday, live at 9 p.m. Pacific, right here on ptptshow.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like what you just did is trying to make a different show. It's like, you never want to talk to this guy again? Well, there he is. That kind of podcast is happening. He betrayed you? Well, let's enter him, bring him in the chat.
We talk a lot about it, a lot of entertainment, but we could also just really switch into Maury.